We are live. Gus, all the way from Colorado today, had to leave me, no longer in Corvallis. It's nice and rainy here. But there's some sunshine. There's some sunshine gleaming in Corvallis because the Beavers beat Cal this weekend. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about. What went good, what went bad. A lot of things actually went worse than you'd think that they would have went, even though we came out with a W. But how's it going, Gus? How you doing?
I'm doing great, Hef. I'm a little bit sad I can't be there in Corvallis with you this evening. But nevertheless, Beavers are on the forefront of my mind, and I'm excited to talk to them about with you right now. So let's jump right into this first topic, Hef. We got our first win. Let's start positive. What finally went right for us against Cal this week?
I say this, I have a counter to what I'm about to say, but I will say this. The defense stepped up quite a bit. They came out, they got two interceptions, which is probably the most they've had in a season in a few years, if I'm being quite honest with you, because this defense has been bad for a while. But they finally came back, after two pretty disappointing first 2 weeks there in the season. And, they came out and they did it. Now, with my counter is, I don't know if Jasper mentioned to you. I'm pretty sure he did when I was watching the crossover episode, but their offensive line had a few guys that were on the COVID list and they weren't allowed to practice for 14 days. So that's 2 weeks worth of practice. If you're missing 2 weeks worth of practice, you're going to come out slow. So, I mean, our defensive line definitely had an advantage over that offensive line, but nonetheless, whole defense came together and actually looked, like a good defense, not like a JV defense.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I also have a couple gripes with the defense, and we certainly benefited from them having so many guys on the COVID list. We certainly benefited from them having guys banged up. But let's stay positive for right now. We'll dive into all our concerns here in a second. But one guy I got to give a huge shout out to is my boy Achille Arnold, baby. Freshman, redshirt freshman. And what does he do? Game on the line. They got the ball in the red zone, 5 yard line, whatever it is, and he tips the ball up for the game-winning pick. That was a big-time play. First time we were talking last week about how we really have no freshmen on this team because we have a very veteran team, and we had the freshman defensive back step up. That was huge. That was awesome. I love to see that. But no, I think some things that went right. I'm right there with you. Our defense certainly looked better. Granted, we did benefit from a couple things, but our rush defense, we've talked about it every single week. You run the ball, you get 6 yards off of 7 years of us. Cal averaged 3.3 yards per carry this week. That was huge. We forced them to throw it. Our pass defense didn't look as great, but I'd rather at this point make the other team beat us with the pass and with the run because it's just not as demoralizing, just missing tackles. We got the push a little bit more than I liked, and also this was huge. We had 9 tackles for a loss, which that probably beats our other 2 games combined, if I had to guess. It's probably 9 more than we had in the last 2 games if I had to go on a limb. And then on top of that, we also had 3 sacks. Or no, 4 sacks. Not as much as what we'd want, but we're certainly getting more pressure, and we certainly looked like a defense that at least deserved to be on the football field this week, which was great to see. With that being said, what are some of your concerns from this week?
You already know who I'm going to talk about, man. Tristan Gebbia. I can't get over how even coming off of a W, I still find reasons to talk about this guy in a negative way. And it's really nothing against him. Hold on, I'm going to go to the chat real quick just because I see we got a few here before I finish my point. Court Johnson says, "Is your head cold?" Yeah, Court, my head is cold. It's getting to be the winter months here. No fro means cold head for Hef. Special teams stepped up a few times. Yeah, special teams definitely came up big, especially on the receiving end of the special teams. We Champ Flemings was incredible. One of the stats that I saw was I'm pretty sure it's 26 yards per return, and he had 4 returns that game. So yeah, definitely special teams stepping it up. But bringing it back to Jebbia, it's crazy that after a W, after his first career win at Oregon State, I'm gonna talk bad about him, but he got bailed out. If we're being honest, he got bailed out, and we'll get into Jebbia in the next topic. But I just wanted to bring up how I am very, very disappointed in his performance. But to take it in a negative way, he got bailed out. Positive and negative, he got bailed out. Jamar Jefferson is continuing his hot streak. He's looking like Dalvin Cook out there. And I mean, 18 carries, 196 yards, and 1 touchdown.
Yep.
Not as many touchdowns as we've seen him score before, but I mean, still ran it all over that Cal defense. But that just goes to show that it takes Jamar Jefferson and the run game to win the football games for
Yeah.
us, and the passing game has no effect at all.
Well, how about how Jamar set the table this game? The first play of the game, 75-yard touchdown run. That we said it before the game. I told it to Jasper last week on the crossover show. I said this could be Jamar's best game of his career. I wouldn't go as far to say that was the best game of his career because he's had better games. But the first play of the game, take it 75 yards to the house, that set the tempo. And I think that kind of instilled in the team, both on the offensive and defensive end, it kind of showed the rest of the team, like, hey, we're going to come out here and we're actually competing this time. We're not just going to roll over, which was great to see. And the fact you said he only had one touchdown, but if you remember Jibia, that one really nice throw he had, it was probably the only good throw he had all game. What was that, play action? Can't remember who he hit, but he hit someone on a streak for that touchdown. It was like a 40-yard pass. I mean, that's basically Jamar because the defense was so scared of him running the ball. Everyone collapsed. Granted, Jibia made a great pass, but Jamar, he just showed out. He's playing like the guy we know he is. He's just getting better and better in my mind, and I feel bad for him because if a guy of his talent should get this national media, should get this national recognition, he's not going to get it because the rest of his team is not up to his caliber. But could you imagine a guy of this talent if he was in the SEC or even on the Ducks or something? Everyone will be talking about him. So I feel a little bit bad because I feel like he's getting overshadowed. But I mean, Jamar is just going crazy. I forgot to mention him when we talked about what went right. But Jamar, huge shout out to him. To bring it back to a couple concerns I have, the thing is, last week we talked about time and possession, right? You would think, given that we won this game, that we kind of evened that out. We actually were even worse this week. They had the ball for 38 minutes, 6 seconds compared to our 21 minutes, 54 seconds. So even though we scored more points than them, they had the ball for 17 more minutes, basically. Not only that, but they outgained us. They had like 150 more yards. So you could easily make the argument from Cal's perspective that they should have won this game. You know, I could keep going. Like, Cal almost beat us with 3 of their offensive linemen out, with no practice for their defensive or offensive line, which is really concerning, you know. But a win is a win. You got to take them how you get them from a Beavers perspective. But still, that time of possession is something that we need to capitalize on, if you ask me.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. But I mean that does go to show that with our team not having the ball for as long as Cal did, that defense did step up. Even though it was close, they had a lot of people missing. It's still I mean, we got the win, but like you said, could have easily been a win for Cal, but that shows the defense stepped up. If the offense doesn't have the ball for the majority of the game, it means the defense is on the field the majority of the game, and the fact that they even came out of that game with a win and could move after the game after playing defense for practically the whole game, that's big time. We got a chat from Josh A. Rod. Big time dub. Yeah, definitely a
Big
big
time,
time dub.
baby.
This is definitely going to be a step in the right direction for the
Well,
Beavers. I mean,
that brings me to a question I was going to ask you, Hef. Is our defense trending in the right direction? Do you think we got bailed out just because they had injuries, or do you actually now have more confidence in that defense?
I wouldn't go as far as to say that they've, you know,
Turn
done
the
anything.
corner.
They haven't done anything crazy, but they took a step in the right direction. They're at least facing in the right direction. And next week's going to be a tough one coming up against U of O. Going to be a big challenge for the defense, but we've seen U of O struggling against some of these teams in the Pac-12 that you would expect for them to beat. So this could be another good game for the defense. Hopefully, playing against better competition raises their motivation and their determination to come out and actually, step it up more than they did against a pretty weak Cal team.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Even though it was against a team, missing offensive linemen, kind of beat COVID wise, this can do a lot for a player's mental confidence and their toughness. They finally proved for once they can stop the rush, right? And I agree with you, Josh. It was impressive, especially because Garber's their QB. He actually had a pretty nice game. He made a lot of impressive throws, I thought. There was a lot of throws where I wasn't even mad at our secondary. I thought we were right there with them. He had one touchdown throw in the third quarter, I believe, which was literally just a spot-on perfect throw. It looked like an NFL QB. So they may have missed some offensive linemen. I think we got one of the better games from Garbers in his career maybe against us. So I think this can do a lot for the defense. I do think we're trending in the right direction, and I'm certainly more confident that we have a slim chance against Oregon. Because if you would have asked me after last week's game when we lost to UW how I thought we'd do against Oregon, I would have zero confidence. My confidence is all the way up to 3%. So I will take that. Hef, last question for you before we move on to the next segment. If you had to grade this game from the Beavers, what are you giving it?
B minus. I give it a B minus. I would go well, I'm not gonna go minus and plus. I'm just gonna go A to F. I give it a B. I say I give it a B because it could have been an A if they won by more. I think the fact that, Cal was missing as many people as they were, or had as many people as they did that didn't practice for as long as the Beavers had, um, that would have been an A if they would have won by more. But the score was a little too close for having the odds kind of stacked in our favor. But like I said, Beaver stepped up. Everybody played well except for Jebbia, in my opinion. And yeah, I would label it as a B. What about you?
I think that's fair. I give it right there as well. If it's not for Jamar, we probably lose that game. I think if it's not for a couple of just big time plays by Achille and some other guys, maybe we lose that game. But, football's won on a couple big plays. So, well, maybe 75, 80% of the game, we literally played it. We had a couple of A-level plays. So I think that B, I think it's fair rating. I'm right there with you. On the note of Jebbia, let's get to it. I know you want to talk about him a little. Maybe it's a little bit of a hot topic because people are getting sick of us just not being able to move the ball. But Hef, are you encouraged by his performance this week or no?
No, no, not at all. I mean, dude, time and time again, the past 2 weeks leading up into Cal, we talked about how he just looks nervous and how he looks indecisive. And it was no different this game. I mean, I'm pretty sure you'd have to don't quote me on this. I would have to do a little bit more looking into this. But from when I was watching the game and I was talking to you, I'm pretty confident that he has one less rushing touchdown than he does passing touchdowns this season. Am I correct
I
there?
think you might be right. I think he has what, 2
Or
touchdowns?
I'm sorry, not rushing touchdown, receiving touchdown.
You're right. You're
Yeah, yeah,
right.
yeah. He caught a touchdown. That's another thing. Our quarterback caught a touchdown this weekend, and that is one less than the amount of passing touchdowns he has. I mean, you look at the numbers in the Cal game, man. Like 12 for 20, 147 yards and one touchdown. Like, like you said, if it wasn't for Jamar, we lose this game. And if it wasn't for Jamar, all the blame would be on Jebbia. Because you can't be going 12 for 20. Like, okay, yeah, that's not a bad ratio, but when you're the starting quarterback of a Power 5 conference team, you got to be playing good. Like 12 and 20 is not going to do anything for a team if you're throwing 147 yards and one touchdown. That's ridiculous. Like everything in this Beavers offense relies on the run game because Jebbia just can't figure it out. And I really don't know like what it takes for him to figure this out because this win was all on Jamar Jefferson. And there's
Well,
no argument with that either. Like it was all on Jamar for the reason that they even got close or I'm sorry, beat Cal, or the fact that it was even so close was the fact that Jebbia just couldn't do anything.
well, that's the thing crazy too is if he was going 12 for 20 and our rushing attack was just terrible, say like we ran for 30 yards and he's just everyone knows we're going to pass the ball and you go 12 for 20, fine. Because it's hard to do something when the defense is expecting it. But they're literally daring us to pass. We have a decent QB. We should have blown them out because they're putting 8 guys in the box trying to stop Jamar, and they still can't stop Jamar. They're literally selling out trying to stop him, basically inviting Jebbia to beat them with a pass, and Jebbia still can rarely do it. I'm gonna throw out a couple stats right here. I was looking at the Pac-12 QB rankings, QB stats. In QBR, Jebbia ranks dead last out of the 12 QBs with a QBR of 35.8. And the next lowest is 53.4. So he's significantly below. He's in dead last place. The other stat, which is really interesting, this is kind of a huge sabermetric stat, but I think it's actually pretty telling. It's called PAA, and basically what it is points above replacement. So it takes basically your team, if we were to replace Jebbia with the most average QB in a Power 5 conference. So you take the most average QB, place him on a team, how many more points would your team score per game if you had him? So for example, the leader in the Pac-12 is Oregon's QB. If you replaced him with with an average QB, Oregon would score a 9 less points. If you replace Jebbia with the most average QB, we would score 7.4 more points. So he is basically a whole touchdown worse than average, which is insane. Especially considering that we had pretty big hopes for him, you more so than me. But I know he's not this bad. I know he is not that bad to be a touchdown worse than the average QB. I mean, that's basically terrible. And the other thing, which I want to say, which is kind of funny, you said he has one less passing touchdown than he does receiving. How about this? Jibia could end the season as the first ever QB to be tied for the lead in reception touchdowns. Because right now he's tied for the lead with one touchdown receiving, which is kind of insane. But I'm just not encouraging. Is he really that bad? Is he that bad, or is he just playing bad? If that makes sense.
I see. It just makes me not even like have words. It's the point where week one, okay, he had a bad week one. Week two, okay, he had a bad week two. Maybe week three is the time for him to step it up. And we even mentioned last week that this week was going to be the week that if he needs to step it up, he's got to step it up. And he comes out and lays a dud. And I think the thing that everybody really overlooks is the fact that, especially with this game, is that we won. So
Mm-hmm.
everybody's like, oh, we won. Woo, that's great. But if you're really a fan of Beaver football and you're looking at how each individual player played, you could just see the complete shift in the game. Like the fact that our rushing game is so far ahead of our passing game
Mm-hmm.
leaves us at such a disadvantage, and people blow over that because we won.
Yeah.
Or the defense played bad. Like the last 2 weeks, the defense just played way worse than Jebbia really did. I put a lot of this blame on Jebbia. Like, if you can't throw the ball, the defense is going to know what you're going to do. And we've been saying this from the moment we started Beaver Dash. If you can't throw the ball, obviously you're going to run it.
Yeah.
Everybody knows you're going to run it. And unfortunately for Cal, they knew we were going to run it. They just couldn't stop it. But when you're coming up against better teams, like we got U of O next week, or this weekend, I'm sorry,
Mm-hmm.
they know what we're going to do. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that U of O is going to come out and know exactly what we're going to do. If Jebbia can't step it up, I, I'm going to say it right now. Chance Nolan.
Yeah. That's just.
Chance Nolan.
I want to come here and I want to ask you, is it time to make the change? But I just know you're not going to take a guy out of the starting job after you get a win, because we come out next, say we make the change, and then we come out next week and Nolan plays terrible. Smith is going to get questioned so much. But dude, it's 3 weeks in a row. He has played terrible. And like you said, if we lose this game, he's probably not the starter. Even if he plays the exact same way he did, he's not the starter anymore. But since we won, he's going to get another chance. It drives me crazy because aside from one throw he made, that one throw was the play action touchdown pass. That was really his only good throw. And the thing is, that throw was set up because they had no confidence that he could make that throw. They put a receiver in single coverage and dared him to throw it. And while it was a great throw, that's a throw he should make. So maybe I'm even gassing him up too much, because that is a throw that an average Pac-12 quarterback should make. That's the thing, though. It's difficult to keep watching this, and I feel bad for Jamar because Jamar deserves something better. With that being said, last week he threw for, what was it, like 84 yards or something, 85? I can't remember, but even worse than what he was this week.
Oh, 85.
Yeah. Is he trending the right way?
No.
Or no, you don't think so?
No, I mean, like week one was what, 227? Like that's a pretty average week for a QB in the Pac-12. Week two, 85 yards. Like, dude, I could go out there and throw 85 yards. I mean, not to be the guy that says, oh, I could go out there and do that, but I mean, come on. There's dudes in, not to give disrespect to JUCO or anything, but like there's dudes in JUCO who are making this guy look like he doesn't even deserve to be on any college team. Like, it's ridiculous that he comes out and throws 85 yards in a game against a team. Like, yeah, it's the Washington Huskies. They had a good defense, but dude, if you can't throw over 100 yards, like, why are you the starting quarterback? And why can't you make better decisions, or at least just sling the rock, man? Like, that's all you have to do, especially when you have a running back that can run all over any defense in the conference. It doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense. And it's not like the passes or the opportunities to make those passes aren't there. He's just not making them.
I got a spin zone for you. Jibia is actually encouraging kids to shoot for their dreams. And I think that's really respectable, because if you're a high school QB, you're looking at Jibia and you think you can be a Power 5 QB, because if he can do it, I'm telling you, you can do it too.
Yeah.
That's what's crazy, though. And I was watching this game last week, on a serious note. I was watching this game last week, and a lot of people they were blaming Coach Smith. They said that he wasn't making the play calls that he needs to make. Coach Smith has a great history with QBs. He turned Jake Browning into almost a Heisman. He turned Lewin into an NFL starting quarterback. We don't need to talk about how he did last week. It doesn't matter. But Coach Smith is great with QBs. His gripe, I've never had a gripe with his offense ever. I've only had gripes with him on the defensive side of the ball. And I say he's making strides on defense in a way. But that's why I want to say it's almost entirely on Jebbia because this guy has gone from Idaho to Washington to Oregon State now, and he's made basically every single QB average or above average. So Jebbia is really the only one that he hasn't been able to do that with. That being said, let's turn our attention now to next week, to this Friday, 5:30.
Before that, I will say we should probably take a look at the chat, see what Court said here. Jebbia Heisman watch, take of the year. Yeah, Court, lay off the IPAs, guy. Lay off the IPAs. All right, let's get into this U of O game. Let's talk about, is there any chance that we beat the Ducks? I'm gonna come at you hot as a Beaver fan, and I said this when we started Beaver Dash. I will never say that U of O is gonna beat or OSU. I can't. I can't do it. It's against my principles. Um, so is there any chance? Yeah,
There's
there's
always
that.
a chance. There's
There's
always
always a chance. It's not, and if I'm coming from a realistic perspective and not an OSU reporter, analyst, fan, friend of players, blah blah blah, alumni, whatever. I'm coming at you realistically. Like it's not impossible. Have you like especially if you're watching the way that U of O has been playing. Oh, I also just see that my tagline switched up there a little bit. I guess I'm Jasper from Cal now. Um, but I mean, if we're looking at this U of O team, who was undeniably the best team in the Pac-12 before we came into the season, and how they've played against a lot of these teams, like sure, they beat Washington State, who also beat us by a pretty significant margin, and they beat them by a decent margin. But coming into the season, like everybody thought U of O was going to be that team that was destined to be 7-0 and possibly make it to the playoffs. Now we're looking at this team like, yeah, they might go 7-0, but are they beating teams enough to make it into the playoffs and make a reasonable case to get in there? I mean, like, look at UCLA, who just stomped Cal 2 weeks ago, and then Oregon struggles to beat them by. I'm pretty sure the score they only beat them by 3.
Yeah, beaten by 3.
So I mean, if Oregon decides to come out and try to take this game against OSU lightly, because I have a feeling that's what they did against UCLA. They're it's UCLA, like we could stop them. It's going to be an easy game. If they come out and take OSU for granted, it's not going to be a fun game for them, regardless of who we have at the quarterback spot, or regardless of how Jefferson does, or regardless of how the defense goes. If they come out and they play lackadaisical, it's not crazy for anybody to say that OSU could beat U of O this week.
Yeah, I am right there with you. I don't think it's crazy at all. And the main reason I think that their last 3 games, so we both know they beat Stanford, they took care of business at Stanford, played well. Washington State, they didn't start playing until the third quarter. And then UCLA obviously did not play that well. But against Stanford, they allowed 5 yards per carry against Stanford. 6.6 yards per carry against Washington, and they allowed 5 yards per carry against UCLA. I'm going to be so bold to say that we have one of the best rushing attacks in the conference because of Jamar. If they're allowing 5 to 6 yards a carry against every other team, I think we're going to average 6-7 yards. And I really think if we're going to win this game, obviously Jamar is going to he's going to have a huge game. But I think he can really have the capability to do it. This is not the U of O from last year. This is not the Rose Bowl champions. This is not the guys who dominated. They came out this season, and to me, it looks like they expected. They just want all the respect. They think they should just be throwing that college football playoff, and they're not playing like a college football playoff team. That's why I think they're vulnerable to a team like us who, yes, we know all the gripes, and I know I'm saying this in the back of my mind. I think a 10% chance we might win this or whatever, but it's not impossible. I think that number 9 rank that they are, you look at that, they're not as scary as what a number 9 team should be.
Oh no,
Yeah, go for it. Go.
that's one of the things that I have written down here. I mean, U of O is highly overrated in the rankings. I mean, you're telling me that team is ranked 9 out of 25. Like, you got to be joking me. They barely beat a UCLA team that if you put that UCLA team against some teams in that top 25, they wouldn't even score a touchdown, maybe until the fourth quarter in garbage time. So I mean, like I just don't think that U of O has the strength and the drive. I don't see it, and like I said earlier, not to circle back, but everybody thought this team was going to be the 7-0 team without
Yeah.
a doubt, and now everybody is like, well, I mean, should they even be ranked 9? Like the fact that they're even being questioned about being ranked 9, it's a little ridiculous.
Well, and what's so encouraging is that I forgot, I lost my train of thought, but I'll come back to it. But what's also encouraging is we've talked so much about how Jebby has struggled, but why was the reason you at the beginning of this year, you at the offseason, you were the one saying you wanted Jebby to start? And that is because how well he played against U of O last year. Maybe he's just one of those guys that shows up in the big games. And some guys are like that. Some guys play bad against the bad teams, and then once the competition comes, they raise their level. Maybe Jibby is just one of those guys. But last year, he was 26 for 40 against them, 243 yards, and that was one of the best defenses in the nation he did that with. If Jibby could somehow revisit that, and I'm not putting faith in him, but who knows? Maybe he can do it. And I'm saying this, if we beat the Ducks, I don't care if we lose the next 3 games by 100 points each game. That's a successful season. I want to see us beat the Ducks and ruin their chances at a college football playoff. That would be remarkable. That would be sick. That would be the best Thanksgiving present I could get, is if we can ruin the Ducks season. That would be perfect.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the best part about this game is that we're not allowed to call it its previous name, but this rivalry between U of O and OSU is a long, long, long history of great games. It's a weird season this year with all the COVID restrictions and the shortened season and shortened practice time, blah blah blah. It's a crazy time, but OSU has nothing to lose. I mean, at this point, like 1-2, we had some pretty high hopes coming into the season that we were going to be 5-2, possibly even sneak in there somewhere. But we don't have anything to lose.
Yeah.
U of O has everything to lose. They lose one game, and there goes their
Um,
chances of making it to the college football playoffs. So, I mean, why would OSU not come in here and just give it their all? And
yeah.
that's usually what happens. OSU always comes out, regardless of, except for maybe 2 years ago where we got
Mhm.
blown out. But every year
We
coming
played
into this
tough.
coming into this rivalry game, OSU always comes in strong, and
Yeah.
I have no doubt in my mind that this weekend they'll come out and they'll try to play big, and especially for Jamar, like
The last
this
time, probably.
this is a game for him to really show the type of player he is
Yeah.
against a ranked team that I wouldn't be surprised if this game is televised. This is his chance to get a spotlight.
So this is on. That's what I was gonna say. This game's on ESPN, 5:30 Pacific time or 5:30 Mountain time, so 4:30 Pacific time on ESPN. I was talking about this early in the podcast. I feel bad for Jamar not getting that national attention, that recognition. This could be the game. If he has a big game against a top 10 team, goes off, he's gonna get all the attention he wants. And I know because last year really we lost the game by 14, but it was a lot closer than that. Jamar has to have a bitter taste in his mouth because he had his first and only career fumble on against them last year, which would have tied the game up with like less than 5 minutes left. That has to leave a bitter taste in his mouth. And then on top of that, he only rushed for 80 yards against them. I mean, it's crazy to think that Jebbia was the reason we almost won that game last year largely, and Jamar was the one who struggled. So I know he wants to come out. He wants to have a huge game. I touched on Jebbia and Jamar, those two obviously. Hopefully Jebbia can return to what he did last year. Hopefully Jamar can have a big game. Two other things that I think if we do these, we have a legit chance at winning is number one, we got to pressure Tyler Show, their QB. UCLA got to him 4 times. That's why they almost won. We have a better linebacking core than them, no doubt in my mind. If we can get to him, put pressure on him, that'd be huge. And then secondly, or University of Oregon, they are converting their third downs at almost 60% conversion rate, which is insane. If we just get them off the field, start winning back that time of possession, that would be huge. We need to do those 2 things. I think we have a legit chance at winning this. Hef, with that being said, I know we got 1 minute left. Quickly, they're favored by 2 touchdowns. Are we covering that spread? What's our final score?
Final score. I'm gonna go bold. Like I said, never gonna say U of O is gonna be OSU. I'm saying 31-28 OSU.
I'm staying right there with you. I'm most of the time I don't agree with your predictions when it comes to most sporting events, but I'm gonna do it. 31-24. Jamar's having a career game, and U of O's going home packing.
Yep. Well, Ladies, gents, everybody out there watching, thank you so much for tuning into Beaver Dash. This was a good one. We're excited for this U of O game. You know, it's a big rivalry week. Hope you all are going to have a great Thanksgiving, enjoying time with your family. Remember to stay safe, socially distance, do all that good stuff. Make sure you're staying healthy. We have columns published exclusively with our partner, sportspack12.com. Follow them at sportspack12. Or if you want to see some other things like Beaver Dash or Bear Dash or all the other dashes that Dashboards has, follow Dashboards TV on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, or go to our website, dashboards.tv. Thank you once again. Have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll catch you later.